everyone, welcome back to Nat Cakes My Day. I'm Nat and I'm going to be showing you how to make a law-themed cake. For every cake request I get, I do ask for an inspiration picture and what they're looking for in terms of the cake, and for this one the customer sent me this photo. So for sure he mentioned he wanted the gavel and he wanted the book and he wanted the cake to be black and he wanted it to say Shiv's call to the bar. So if you're interested in seeing how I made this cake, then keep on watching. So I first want to give a shout out to Rubina. Rubina is my boyfriend's sister and also my very, very close friend. Shiv, the person actually receiving this cake, actually met Rubina when she was in Australia for pharmacy school. So Shiv went to law school there, they had met through mutual friends, and then she saw my page and my Instagram through Rubina. So thank you Rubina for sharing my page and for your continued support. I wouldn't have had this customer without you, so thank you. To make this cake, it has very basic ingredients. You need to, of course, have just your cake, which is just the basic cake ingredients, your buttercream. As well, you will need fondant, and you will also need Rice Krispy. So I used the Rice Krispy to make the gavel and the book, just because I didn't want to use full-on fondant for both of those details, and it would have been too heavy as well, that it wouldn't have been sturdy. Fondant as well, when you do leave it out to dry, it will start clumping up and just like, I can't describe that word. It just won't work well. So it's better to use Rice Krispy because it's very easy to shape and it's very lightweight. So I first started out by grabbing my Rice Krispy. I just grabbed Rice Krispy squares that were already pre-packaged and I broke it apart, molded it together a little bit. And you see here I started out with the gavel. So for the gavel, it's just as simple as rolling out a quick cylinder. I rolled it against my cutting board and then I squished the ends to the side until I was happy with the shape. For the book, it was pretty much already the shape that I wanted it to be. I just went ahead and squished it a little bit flatter and I stretched it out just a little bit more, and then otherwise it was perfect. I also went ahead and took a little piece for the sound block. That's what the piece that you bang the gavel on is what it's called. I had to Google that, I had no idea what that was called. But yeah, that's just an easy circle shape, so nothing too crazy there. And then once you're happy with the shapes of your details, you're gonna go ahead and crumb coat that with buttercream. And once that is crumb coated and chilled, you can go ahead and do your final layer of buttercream. And now for the fondant. So for brown fondant, you can either buy it pre-packaged and pre-colored brown, or you can actually make it yourself. I don't have brown, I do have white though, so I went ahead and just kept adding cocoa powder and brown food coloring, and I kept mixing it together. Eventually got the brown color that I wanted. When it comes to fondant, it gets really tough because you have to deal with seams. For something like the gavel, it was very easy because I knew that I was going to cover the seams that existed already with some more detailing. So that's why I did want to cover the sides first and then do one band around the outside in the middle. And now for the book. So of course with any book you do have 3 sides that are pages for a book. So for this I just went ahead and added white fondant. So I added that to the 3 edges first. And then I took that entire piece and added it to brown fondant and just cut around, and then did a nice fold and trimmed around the edges so it fit very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and let that book chill just for a little bit before I add the pages, details, as well as the law writing on the book. And now for the gavel handle. So I already let the gavel sit and chill for a little bit, but now I want to add the handle. So I just had a skewer. I have a bunch of skewers from the dollar store. They're a little thicker, which is really nice. I cut it to the shape that I wanted the handle to be, and then I also just went ahead and used a pencil sharpener to sharpen the edges a little bit to make it easier to insert. And then here I just used some more brown fondant that I rolled the stick in. I used water to secure it. For something like this, I would recommend using piping gel. It is more like a glue. I've been using water just to stick fondant on fondant. That works very well. But to stick something on a wooden dowel, you may want to use piping gel. And that's pretty much it for the start of the details. So now we're going to start on the actual cake. So for this cake, we had a chocolate cake with vanilla buttercream that was requested. So here I'm just already had my cake layers trimmed, I've had them layered, and I've also simple syruped them. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and stack and fill my cakes. Make sure you do a nice crumb coat and let that chill. While my cake was chilling, I wanted to start on the letters. So normally when it comes to cakes that have writing on them, I do tend to pick my fonts out. I print them out and then I cut them out, and then I'll trace them on fondant. I know, it's very, very tedious. So for something like this, I really like the font. The sizing was going to be a bit smaller because there's so many details going on in this cake. So I started cutting out my letters and realized how tedious this was. I just couldn't, no. I just gave up on that. I was like, I'm just gonna put this aside. I'll figure this out later. So while I was pondering life and figuring out how I wanted to do this writing, I went ahead and frosted my cake. Go ahead and use a bread scraper here, of course, to make sure you get really nice, smooth, and even sides. It's very important that your frosting is very smooth, because when you are covering it with fondant, you can't cover any imperfections and discrepancies on your cake. You do need to make sure that everything is very smooth before you apply it, because you can actually accentuate those details when you do add fondant. And then I went ahead and covered the cake with black fondant. So covering a cake with fondant is so stressful to me. I am just not good at it. I don't know why I get so many folds and nooks and just can't do that. But anyway, just went with it. It was fine. Here we go. So I went ahead and covered that cake with black fondant, and you have to work very quickly. You want to start by tucking the edges at the top using a fondant smoother to make sure that your fondant doesn't rip and tear. And then you work your way down. So you're stretching it out, pulling out the fold, stretching it out, and then just keep going until you get to the ends. And then you just go ahead and trim the edges. So notice here, I still do have a few folds and discrepancies here, but I knew that I was going to add a nice gold trim on the outside, so that did cover most of it, so good to go. So now that my cake is covered, I wanted to finish up the details. So starting off with the book, I wanted to have it say law. I just took those letters that I had printed out and pushed it against the book and started running my X-Acto knife just against the outside of the letters, and then so I can see it below just on the actual cake. And then I just used a black edible marker to write out the letters. I did find that it did get very soft very quickly. If you do have troubles writing on fondant with an edible marker, just quickly pop that back in the fridge so it will cool, it'll harden a little bit more, and then keep on going. And now for the writing of the Shiv's call to the bar. I was dreading this, I was pushing this off, but then my sister actually recommended that I should just freehand it. And freehanding it, I don't know, I mean, is my penmanship that great? Not really. But I didn't really have a choice at this point. There was no way I was gonna do fondant letters, so you know what, I was just gonna freehand it. I went ahead and put my printed out letters just on the cake so I had it for reference. And then I just took some gold lustrous and mixed that with a little bit of vodka just to get a nice painting consistency. And then I just took a small paintbrush and painted on the letters. I was very scared here. This honestly took about 20 minutes to do start to end, but I'm a perfectionist and I had to make sure it was right. I had to make sure the lines were perfectly straight, and I wanted to look just like the font and just flawless. So I definitely took my time with this. I definitely recommend you take your time as well if you do plan on freehanding with gold paint. But I think it turned out absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that I went with this, so shout out to my sister for recommending the freehanding. And now for the gold trim on the cake. So I just rolled out some white fondant into a nice cylinder. I used my fondant smoother as well just to get a flat edge. It helps a lot when it comes to rolling nice and even things. Then when it was the length that I wanted, I went ahead and wrapped it around the cake. But beforehand, I did want to make a bit of a glue, so I just used water and brushed some water on the edges of the cake so that the fondant would stick very nicely to it. And now for the scale. Oh man. I looked at the scale and I was like, this is gonna be a little tough to do. For the most part, the shapes of it aren't too bad. I mean, it's just rolling out some white fondant once again, but it's placing it on, and the little details like that just got a little stressful. So I definitely needed help from my sister at this point. Doing the sides of the scale was really tough because doing that when the cake is upright is just not easy. So I actually had her held the cake for me so I can actually work on it downwards, so it would be a little easier to shape. For this cake, honestly, I wish I had like 4 hands because as I was trying to twist every detail on, I just needed more reaching to do. So thankfully my sister was here. She was poking with a stick as well, just like moving details around and helping me shape it as well as securing it. So that was just... And once we were finally done with the shape, which actually took like 30 minutes once again, I was happy with it. Then we had to just go ahead and paint it. So taking that gold luster glass once again, I just went ahead and painted all of the white details, so the scale and the gold trim. This was really easy. This is actually really fun as well. It's just you have to be super careful not to get it onto the cake itself, because taking off gold luster dust on fondant is super tough, especially on black where it's very evident. If you just rub it, you will start seeing little sparkles that are remaining. So just make sure you're super careful and take your time when it comes to painting fondant. And once you're done painting that, you want to go ahead and let it cool and dry completely. I actually did this for one night, and the next day I did a second coat. Well, actually my sister did the second coat for me, thank you, as we were getting ready to go to Scout. Once we returned from our trip, it was just putting it all together. So I took the details and I added the book and the sound block using buttercream, just securing it on top of the cake. And then I used one more dowel to secure the gavel into the sound block. So I just took that, again, another sharpened dowel, stuck it inside the gavel, and then just placed it right on top of the sound block and just made it rest very nicely. And that's it. So it was ready to get picked up the next morning, as that was Shiv's bar ceremony day. I think the best part about cakes, honestly, is seeing the reactions of customers when I give them the cake. And this customer was super happy. He said he was going to refer all his friends to me in Vancouver as well, so that made me so heartwarmed. I want to give a quick shout out to my sister who helped me with the details. I seriously could not have done it without her. That was tougher than I thought, but we managed, and I'm so lucky that I had her in town to help me with that one. And that's all I have for you today. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this helped you out if you wanted to make fondant cakes. Thanks for watching.